During the night, Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servant wives, and his 11 sons and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp. And a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket. Then the man said, "Let go, for the dawn is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" the man asked. He replied, "Jacob." "Your name will no longer be Jacob," the man told him. "From now on, you will be called Israel, because you have fought with God and with men and have won." "Please tell me your name," Jacob said. "Why do you want to know my name?" the man replied. Then he blessed Jacob there. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means face of God. For he said, "I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared." The sun was rising as Jacob left Peniel, and he was limping because of the injury to his hip. Even today, the people of Israel don't eat the tendon near the hip socket because of what happened that night when the man strained the tendon on Jacob's hip. We're talking about track 2, I won't let go. What you're getting right here is a turning point in the life of a man by the name of Jacob. This is one of the most pivotal moments of his life. This is one of the most important moments of his life. This is the defining moment for him, if you would. Some of you in life have been faced with, or you will be faced with, moments that will change your life forever based on the decision that you make in that moment. One decision, good or bad, can change the course of your life forever. One good, one bad, one choice. Choosing to get up and to persevere in a moment where you want to give up and quit. That one choice can change your life forever. This was a moment in his life where he had a choice to make. And this one choice would be the deciding factor for how the outcome of his life would turn out. So let's talk about who Jacob really was. Jacob's name means trickster or deceiver. In fact, the Hebrew word Jacob means heel grabber. You might be thinking, "Pastor, how in the world do you get trickster and deceiver from heel grabber?" So glad that you asked. Because in Hebrew, here's what it means. First, to grab someone's heel means that if they're walking, you come from behind and you pull it out from underneath of them. You are deceiving them, tricking them, or supplanting them. You're trying to gain dominance over them. So they said that sneaky people or tricky people will always try to get you from behind, like a backstabber. And so from birth, his name was Trickster. That tells you what his parents thought about him. How many of you know that the day you were born, some of you may feel like your destiny was already written in stone? I grew up in this kind of environment. My parents were like this. This is what people said about me. This is what they did. This was the cards that life had dealt me. This is the hand that I had been given. This is all that I'll ever be in life. So from birth, he was known as the deceiver. In Genesis chapter 25, where his story begins, it says this, "And the Lord told her, his mother Rebekah, the sons in your womb will become two nations. From the very beginning, the two nations will be rivals. One nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son." And when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she did indeed have twins. The first one was very red at birth and covered in thick hair like a fur coat. So they named him Esau. His name would later go on to be Edom, which means red or red man. Then the other twin was born with his hand grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob, which means heel grabber, because at birth, he was trying to get ahead of his brother. When he was born, he was trying to pull his brother back so he could be number one. And so his parents named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born, so he was born trying to get ahead. How many of you know there are several ways that you can quote unquote get ahead in life? One of the ways that you can get ahead in life is this: you do it on your own. Some people, they have all the money, all the status in the world. They have wealth, they have fame, they have notoriety. They've done everything to build this life for themselves, and yet the life they've built is nothing that they thought it would be. It doesn't bring them happiness, it doesn't bring them joy, it doesn't bring them satisfaction. All they've done is built and given themselves everything they thought was important in life, only to discover that it didn't bring them satisfaction in the end. The story of Jacob is about a man who went out of his way to get the things that he wanted in life, not seeking God first, but finding a way to trick and deceive and to scheme and to get over on everybody else so that he could be the one to get ahead. And how many of you know when you live your life like that, eventually it's going to catch up to you? When you make it to the top, let it be because people lifted you up on their shoulders, and not because you stepped on top of them to make it there. When people have lifted you up and they have elevated you and they have supported you and they have kept you and they have encouraged you on your way to the top, when you make it there, they'll be right there helping sustain you. But when you have a pile of bodies that you've stepped on and you've messed people over to get to the top, eventually everything that you built will crumble down around you. So from birth, his name was Deceiver. But how many of you know that it doesn't matter how you were born, where you were born, the circumstances in which you were born in, the education level that you have, the income level that you have, when God has a calling and a purpose and a destiny for you, he is going to fulfill it at all costs. Philippians 1:6 says that he that has started a good work in you shall continue it until the day of the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. In other words, when God has started something in you, when God has called you, when God has appointed you, when God has given you a destiny, when God has given you an assignment, God will be the one to make it happen and not you. The Bible says your gifts will make room for you and put you before great men. Your gifts. It didn't say you will do it, but the gifts that God gave you will make room for you. But too often people try to make it happen on their own, apart from God. And when we try to do things apart from God, that's when things begin to get messy. And so Jacob from birth was the one who wanted to get ahead. And if you read too fast through the text, you'll miss this point. So I'm going to read it for you in case you didn't catch it. God is speaking to their mother. She says, and God says that in you are two nations. They're always going to be rivals. One will be stronger than the other, but here's the catch right here. Ready for this? The older will serve the younger. Esau was first, but Jacob was called. Esau may have been the oldest, but Jacob was the one that God was wanting to use. When God makes a promise, he's going to fulfill it no matter what. The problem is we often try to help God along the way. And this is something that you'll see with Jacob, but also with his grandfather, Abraham. God told Abraham, I'm going to make you the father of many nations. That from you, Abraham, from your loins, a great nation is going to come forth. Abraham waited 25 years for that promise to be fulfilled, but God was going to make it happen regardless of the time span that it took. But partway through the waiting process, Abraham got the idea that maybe God was going to give me a son through someone other than my wife. And so him and his wife tried to help God along. And so his wife took her maidservant and said, go sleep with my husband. And when she got pregnant, she had a son. But God said, that's not what I promised you. It was coming from your wife. You tried to help me out, but I don't need your help. And all you've done is you've made a mess of things. And if you want to know how that worked out between Abraham and his sons, he had one son named Ishmael and one named Isaac. And if you think that what happened was just part of the Bible, look again today. The Middle East is torn apart. There are two really big people in the Middle East. There are the Muslims and there are the Jews. Ishmael became the father of the Muslim religion. Isaac was Judaism. Abraham's mistake, thousands of years later, is still causing war because he tried to get ahead of God. When God makes you a promise, he will fulfill it every single time. So the promise to Jacob was that he would be over his older brother. But he couldn't wait. And so, if you fast forward in the story, there are two other pivotal moments where Jacob makes the wrong choice, and they help start shaping and defining the person that he becomes. In Hebrew culture, in Jewish culture, there is something significant about being the firstborn. The firstborn entitles you to what is called the birthright. That is the legal rights from your parents. In other words, if you are the firstborn child, you get a double portion of whatever your parents have. So if I have a brother, guess what happens? When my father dies, not only am I legally entitled to his estate, but I now get more than my little brother because I am the firstborn. Therefore, legally speaking, I'm entitled to everything. I become the patriarch of the family. My brother gets something, but not as much as me because I am born first. There was a legal advantage that went with being the firstborn. You got more than everyone else did. You were the one who became the head of the family. And so there was a legal side of it, but then there was also what was called the blessing, and that was the spiritual side of it. And so to truly become the patriarch or the next in line to carry on the legacy of your father, you needed both the birthright of the firstborn and the blessing of your father. And when you had both the legal and the spiritual, you were in position to be who God called you to be and to lead your family accordingly. Esau, the older brother, had the right to both because he was the firstborn, even though God promised that Jacob would be the ruler. But let's see what Jacob does and how he fits with his name, Trickster. In Genesis 25, we read this. It says, one day when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau arrived home from the wilderness, exhausted and hungry. Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. This is how Esau got his other name, Edom, which means red. All right, Jacob replied, but trade me your right as the firstborn son. Look, I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright to me now? But Jacob said, first you must swear that your birthright is mine. So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, got up, and left. He showed contempt for his right as the firstborn. Now, if your brother comes in from hunting, Jacob was a cook, Esau was a hunter. Esau was a wilderness man. Jacob liked to stay at home. And so Esau comes in from hunting. He's exhausted. He's famished. A good brother would be like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and cook for you. I can see what's going on. But Jacob was an opportunist. And so as his brother comes in, he looks at him and he says, I see you're hungry. And Esau said, I'm starving. Can I get some of that stew? Now his opportunity has come. I will, but it's going to cost you something. I want your birthright. Give me the right of the firstborn child. See, it was already promised to him by God, and had he waited on God and did it God's way, he would have achieved it without creating hatred and animosity among his family. But he sped up the process doing it on his own. And so he said, I'll give you what I have, but give me what you have first. Now, this was wrong on Esau's part, because Esau should have cherished his right as the firstborn. This was something that was given to him by God, and he should have been cherishing it. He should have held on to it. He should have fought for what was his, but instead it said he held it in contempt. In other words, he didn't think much about his birthright. Jacob wanted it more than Esau did. There will be things in life that, guess what? You may want it more than somebody else, but until God has ordained it, you got to wait your turn. Jacob wanted the birthright more than Esau. In Hebrews, it says, don't be evil like Esau, who hated his right as the firstborn. He held it in contempt. He thought it was worthless. This was something sacred, and he treated it like it was nothing. How often do we come to church and we take the sacred things of God and we treat them like they're nothing? We have the opportunity to come and to worship the Lord, and yet we treat worship like it's nothing. We can pray and come before an almighty God, and we have the ear of the God of the universe, and yet we treat prayer like it's nothing. Esau treated what was sacred with contempt, and Jacob wanted it more. I want what you have more than you have it. Give it to me now, brother. And Esau said, no point having it. If I'm dead, you can have it. It's yours. He gained the first piece. I have the legal right to whatever my father has. But he did it through trickery and deceit. Now, the next part was he would need the blessing of his father to carry on the legacy. How in the world would you gain the blessing of your father? Even though you had the birthright, doesn't mean that your father was going to give you the blessing. Jacob had a plan for that as well. It says in Genesis 27 and 31, Esau prepared a delicious meal and brought it to his father. Isaac is now old and he's blind. It's one thing to take advantage of your brother, but to take advantage of your blind father, that gets pretty low. So Isaac is now blind. He's coming to the end of his life. He can't see. And so what he does is he tells Esau, it's time for me to give you my blessing. Why was that such a big thing in Jewish culture and in the ancient Hebrew world? Here is why it was such a big thing. The voice of the father carried much weight. In fact, in Hebrew culture, what they believed was that when a father spoke over their children, his words had creative power, and whatever he said, that became the child's reality. How many of you know that's what the Bible says? Life and death lies within the power of our tongue. Whatever we say, we shape and we create the world around us using the words that come out of our mouth. Fathers, it is desperately important that you speak life over your children, that you speak life over your home, that you speak life into those that are around you, because the words that you say will shape the reality of those that are around you. It was important when Isaac spoke over his sons, because whatever came out of his mouth, that would become their son's reality. And so Jacob needed his father to speak a blessing over him. And so his mother and him concocted a plan. Your father is getting ready to bless your brother. He told your brother to go out and to catch some wild game that he likes. And so here's what I need you to do, his mother said. You're going to go out and you're going to kill one of the goats. You're going to take the fur from the goat and you're going to put it on your arms because your father is blind. He can't tell the difference. Esau is hairy and you're not. So as long as you kill the goat, I'll cook it and I'll prepare it the way your father likes. You just take the goat skin and put it on your arms. And when your father goes to feel you, he'll feel Esau and not you. And so Jacob and his mother concocted this plan. They go out, they kill a goat. Rebekah prepares it. He goes in and he says, Father, it's me, your son Esau. I've come to get the blessing. And Isaac's like, I can't see, but I can hear. And you don't sound like Esau. You sound like Jacob. Come here and let me feel you. And when he does, he begins to feel him and he feels the hair. And he goes, are you sure you're my son Esau? You feel and you smell like Esau. But I know my son's voice and you sound like Jacob. And he said, I am Esau. Here I've prepared you a meal. And his father eats the meal and he blesses Jacob instead of Esau. He deceived his brother. He deceived his father. He's living up to the name trickster. And so his brother comes home from hunting and he prepares a meal for his father. And he says this, it says, Esau prepared a delicious meal and brought it to his father. Then he said, sit up, my father, and eat my wild game so you can give me your blessing. But Isaac asked him, who are you? Esau replied, it is your son, your firstborn son, Esau. Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably and said, then who just served me wild game? I have already eaten it, and I blessed him just before you came in. And yes, that blessing must stand. Why? Because whatever came out of the father's mouth, that became the reality of the son. When Esau heard his father's words, he let out a loud and bitter cry. Oh, my father, what about me? Bless me too, he begged. But Isaac said, your brother was here and he tricked me. He has taken away your blessing. Esau explained, no wonder his name is Jacob, for he has cheated me twice. First, he took my right as the firstborn, and now he has stolen my blessing. Oh, haven't you saved even one blessing for me? He has tricked and deceived his brother. He has tricked and deceived his father. Now there's only one thing left for him to go do. If you're wondering how the story ends or what happens next, what do you think would happen next? Your brother finds out that you just tricked him out of the last piece of his oldest birthright, and you receive the blessing of the father. Esau was ready for war. And so he begins to go after his brother and declare war on Jacob. Jacob runs and he flees to another country, and he goes and he stays with his uncle. His uncle, who was also a trickster. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of what happens next. He shows up at his uncle's house. His uncle says, come, I'll welcome you with open arms. This is his mother's brother. Come and I'll welcome you with open arms. He goes into his uncle's house. He meets the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. And he says, Uncle, how can I marry this woman right here? And his uncle says, you're in luck. She is single. She's available. And you can marry my daughter, but you have to work for me for 7 years. Jacob agrees to it. And the Bible says he worked 7 years for his uncle, but it seemed as if only a few days, because he was so in love with Rachel. On his wedding night, he marries the love of his life. She comes down the aisle. She has the veil over her face. They do the wedding ceremony. He goes back into his wedding, into his tent. There his bride is. They've consummated their marriage. He wakes up the next morning, takes off his wife's veil, only to discover that it is her older sister and not Rachel. He is furious, and he goes to his father, his uncle, and he said, "What have you done?" And he goes, "Oh, don't you know the custom of this land? You can't marry the younger sister until first the older sister's married. So you had to marry Leah first, then you can marry Rachel." And he said, "But I never wanted her." In fact, Leah means cow. Can you imagine that? Her parents named her cow. Can you imagine how unattractive she probably was? To have been born and your parents go, "That's a cow. That is a cow if I've ever seen one." So Leah means cow. So he wakes up and he thinks he's getting the beautiful Rachel. And when he wakes up, he's next to a cow. And his uncle says, "I'll tell you what, work for me for 7 more years and I'll give you Rachel." The trickster has been deceived. And so he agrees to work 7 more years for his uncle. And it went by quickly because now he gets to be with Rachel, the love of his life. But now he's in a catch-22. He's got 2 wives. He loves one, can't stand the other one. He wants the beautiful Rachel, and instead he has the cow Leah. But only one of them can have children. And guess which one it is? It's the cow. Leah can have children, but Rachel can't. So now if he wants heirs, they have to come through Leah. The deceiver has been deceived again. So then Rachel pulls a Sarah and says, "Look, I can't have children, but my maidservant can. Why don't you get her pregnant and you can at least have children from me through her? She'll be the surrogate." So he gets her maidservant pregnant. And Leah says, "Guess what? You can also get my maidservant pregnant and then you can have more heirs through me." So now there's a children's war going on. So Jacob has so many children because he's now got 4 different women that are competing for his love and affection and having children with him. So he ends up with these 13 sons. And he has a beautiful family. He's been working for his uncle for 14 years. And his uncle says, or tells his uncle, "I've been working for you. I got nothing to show for it. Nothing. I have been a shepherd for you. I've got nothing to show for it. What can I get for working for you all this time?" And his uncle says, "I tell you what, here's what we're going to do. Every lamb that is born that is either striped or speckled is yours. Everyone that's not striped and speckled belongs to me." How's that? Guess what? Most lambs are born not striped or speckled. But see, Jacob was a trickster and a deceiver, so he knew a way to create speckled lambs. There is a particular tree that grows in the Middle East, and when you take that tree bark and you put it in the watering area where the lambs mate, that particular tree bark being in the water makes the lambs come out speckled or striped. And so he then started breeding speckled lambs. His uncle finds out about it and says, "You know what? I tell you what, all the lambs that are speckled and striped are now mine. You can have the normal lambs." And he says, "Great." So he removes the tree bark from out of the water, and now all the lambs are being born without speckles and stripes again. And he has deceived his uncle for the last time. His uncle is infurious, tells him to get out. He leaves with everything that he has. He's wandering back home to see his father who is about to die. And he gets word that Esau is on the way. You've deceived, you've tricked. You lied to your father, you've lied to your brother, you've deceived your uncle, you've been deceived. His life was a life built on trickery and deception. How many of you can relate? I've lived this life of mine, and it hasn't been the most glorious thing. I have schemed and I have plotted and I have tried to do everything in my own power to create the life that I want and the life that I think that I should have. It's all about me, me, me. And nowhere in here was God found. It was about what Jacob wanted. And so now he's in a position. There's a furious uncle, a murderous brother, and he's got nowhere to run. He sort of made peace with his uncle. But in order to go see his father before he dies, he has to cross into the land of Edom, which is his brother's territory. He's scared and he's nervous. And so what he does is he sends his family on ahead. And for the first time in a long time, he gets alone by himself. How many of you know that in a place of transformation and change, when God wants to work on your life, the place you need to most be is by yourself? Sometimes in order for God to work and to change you and to transform you, he first has to isolate you and get you to the point where you are alone by yourself. And so he sends his family to the other side. And now he's on the other side of this river. He's alone. He's by himself. He has to deal with the weight and the guilt and the shame of all the mistakes that he's made and everything that he didn't do right and everything that he's done to get him to the point that he is right now. And so he's alone with his own thoughts for the first time in a long time. And he's feeling the weight and the guilt and the shame. And all of a sudden, a man shows up out of nowhere. And he begins to wrestle with this man. Now, when we say wrestle, some of you guys might be thinking of like WWE, SmackDown, like he jumped on the dude, they did like a little like DDT move and like bam. That's not how they wrestled. What that word means, it means to grapple. It almost means as if they were to come at each other, they locked hands and it became a battle and a struggle. Who would get the other to the ground first? And so as he's walking, he sees a man, him and this man, it doesn't even say there's a buildup. They just automatically engage in combat. There had to have been something about the man that made Jacob a little irritable, or something about the man that seemed unique. But he went after this particular man. How do we know that Jacob was the aggressor? Because of what the man says. He tells him, let me go. You came at me. What do you want from me? Why are you coming after me? But he recognized who this man was. He was no ordinary man. It was God himself. And in order to get what he needed, he had to have an encounter with God. Some of you have been wrestling and doing things on your own, and you've had encounter after encounter with other people, and God's been telling you, I need you to have an encounter with me. And that only happens when we get by ourselves and get alone. And so he gets alone with God, and there he wrestles. We act like wrestling with God is a bad thing. No, sometimes we need that time. We need to sit and ask God the hard questions. We need to sit and think and pray and tell God how we feel, and tell him that we were upset, and tell him that we're hurt, and tell him that we've been going through some things. He wrestled with God. Sometimes as you're going through tests, trials, and tribulation, God is in the process of transforming you, but the transformation doesn't come until you've taken the time to wrestle with what God has been trying to do on the inside of you. Some storms are made to grow you and to help you and to transform you. Jacob couldn't be the man God called him to be because God first had to work out the character flaws. Some of you, God is building your character. He's preparing you for something else, but you just have to endure a little bit longer. You just have to hold on a little bit longer. You just have to wrestle a little bit longer. God hasn't forgotten. God's not slack concerning his promises. God's not going to give up on you. God's saying, hold on and fight just a little bit longer because the promise is on the way. You just have to keep holding on. It wasn't made to destroy you. It was made to shape you. For Jacob to become who God wanted him to be, God first had to develop his character. Some of you have been called one thing your whole life, and it's all you've ever known to be. I am a cheater. I am a liar. I am an addict. I am this. I am that. And that's all you've ever been known for and all you think you will ever be. But I'm here to tell you that when God calls you by a different name, when God speaks into your life, when God speaks into the situation, it doesn't matter how people have perceived you. It doesn't matter how people have talked about you. It doesn't matter what your parents have said about you. When God speaks into your life, change and transformation happens. And so he wrestled with God. And the man tells him, let me go. A person who has schemed his whole life. A person who has always taken the easy way out. A person who has always tried to get over on everybody else. He received a blessing that he did not deserve because he lied and cheated to get it. But this time, he stands boldly before God. I'm a cheater, I'm a liar, and I've been a deceiver since birth. I have obtained a birthright and a blessing that I know I don't deserve. But sir, I can't let you go until you speak over my life. Because when God speaks over your life, it doesn't matter what the devil has said. It doesn't matter what your friends have said. It doesn't matter what society has said. It doesn't matter what your parents have said. When God speaks, it's the final authority. And he said, I won't let you go until you speak into my life. And God said, what is your name? Did God not know his name? No, God knew very well who he was. But he said, tell me about yourself. Who are you? And sometimes when we wrestle with God, that's the question we have to ask ourselves. Who are we and who do we want to become? And who has God created us to be? Who are you? I am Jacob. Who are you? I'm a deceiver. Who are you? I'm a liar. Who are you? I'm the trickster. No, who are you? And he said, my name is Jacob. But when God got involved, he said, your name is no longer Jacob. Your name is no longer the doctor's report. Your name is no longer the mistakes you've made. Your name is no longer what other people have spoken over you. Your name is no longer that bad choice and that bad decision that you made 10, 15 years ago. When God speaks over your life, he says, who are you? This is who I am. I am Jacob. He said, no, you are now Israel. God gave him a new name. And when God changes your name, don't you go back to being who you were before. When he met his wife, Jacob, no, I'm no longer Jacob, I'm Israel. When he saw Esau, Esau said, Jacob, no, I'm no longer your brother, Jacob, I'm Israel, because I have wrestled with God and I have prevailed. Israel means prince with God. I have been with God. I wrestled with him. I was transformed by the power of God. I'm no longer who I used to be, but I am who God says I am now. He thought he needed a blessing, but what he needed was character development.